Episode 3. It Takes a Village. Welcome back, one and all. You've entered my dark and sordid little corner of the internet. You may call me Jessi, and I'm here to share the various tales of the paranormal encounters everyday people have. So sit back, put your feet up, and listen. From a Reddit user named Croatoa26. I can't believe I'm doing this. I guess it's slightly better than writing into my diary again. My name is Nicole Asano, and I'm from Cartrio. You won't find it on any map ever, but that's kind of why I'm here, isn't it? No one can find it. Not even me. Cartrio was a village in Baffin Bay, close to the Davis Strait, on an island that's technically part of Nunavut, though we had our own autonomy. It was a normal little place as far as I can tell. We lived normal lives. It's closer to the Arctic there, so it's pretty cold most of the year round. We have our summer months, though it's usually just a couple of weeks where the temperature hit above zero for a bit. Despite that, though, we've spent a huge amount of time outdoors. It wasn't out of necessity or anything, we just liked it. I've lived way down south here ever since I escaped. And the temperatures that people call cold down here, I mean, it's the middle of winter and I'm sitting here in shorts and a t-shirt, okay? Hell, I remember once I had a pen pal down somewhere in the States, Florida, I think. They were shocked to find out that I didn't live in an igloo and get around on dog sleds. I lived in a house, like a normal 3-bedroom, 2-floor house, electricity, the works. Hell, I've even seen other Canadians who thought that those in the territories lived in snow houses and ice hotels. Makes me chuckle most of the time. Anyways, my life was normal, as was everyone else's. I went to school, graduated near the top of my class, and went straight into the workforce. None of it is normal, but there aren't too many prestigious post-secondary schools and programs, so those that want to pursue them usually move to British Columbia or Ontario. The rest of us usually get on-the-job training wherever we end up working, which is where I found myself. 19 and cocky, thinking I knew everything about the world, despite never really leaving my hometown. Cartrio had one hospital, Cartrio General, and was, like most hospitals, in constant need of every staffing position there was. Doctors, nurses, janitors, cleaners, yes, in the case of the medical field, those are two very different jobs, secretaries, archivists, in-house inventory counters, out-of-house inventory counters, everything. I found myself, through a few friends of the family, as a junior secretary. It was honestly just a glorified gopher. You know how it goes, go for this, go for that. It wasn't a bad job or anything, but as a hot-blooded, just barely adult, such a thing was so far beneath me, and I knew I was destined for greater things. So, I moved up in position. Quickly, but not fast enough for me, and when I was off shift, I bitched about my lack of progress, constantly. So much so that one day my aunt, not biologically to be clear, but close enough to my mom that she might as well have been blood, took me aside. She was the one who got me my job to begin with, and while she was a nice lady, she really didn't have tolerance for my teenage attitude. I was 21, I think, at this point. In the 2 years previous, I'd managed to go from junior secretary to tenured secretary. It wasn't unheard of, but it was rare. Of course, I was completely unappreciative, so Aunt Rachel decided to take matters into her own hands. It started off as a staff meeting, something that was pretty regular, and she asked me one question, or rather the group one question, and it kind of shook my worldview a bit. Who here, if I fired Nicole right now, would want her position? For context, there was about 30 people in that meeting, and easily 20 hands shot up. Many of them were people who got hired after me, but an equal, if not larger amount of them, were people who had been there for years longer than me. It shut me up from whining for a while. I had one of the most desired positions, ones that people who were decades my senior wanted. Honestly, as weird as it sounds, it was a bit of a turning point for my life. Anyways, I don't tell you all this because I want you to know my life story. I tell you this so you understand not only my own mindset when everything happened, but also the mindset of all those people. My people. Friends. Family. It takes a village, you know? Like, we were all really close there, both in proximity, of course, but also emotionally. Most of the people at that hospital had attended my graduation and all my birthdays as a kid. We were a family, and when one of us acted like we were better than that, the community came together for us. It was only a few months later, pretty close to my birthday actually. I was born in December and pretty close to Christmas, so that year I decided to just work my birthday, and I'd celebrate both the day and the holiday together. I'd booked Christmas off as soon as I could, and as the highest ranked person in my department, I got first dibs. I felt a little bad for those under me, but I hadn't gotten the holidays both years previous, so I felt I was owed it. I think it was night when it all started. It can be kind of hard to tell sometimes. It was late either way, and I was working the night shift in Emerge. You have to understand, emergency, it's always busy, all year round, no matter what. Night, day, always. And around the holidays, that place, busier than an Irish pub on St. Paddy's. This night, December 20th, was no different. Cartero wasn't a big village, but amongst the islands around us, we're the only ones with a hospital, so we're the go-to for any injury or illness, for a good 100 kilometers. As a secretary, I didn't really see the people most of the time. I mostly dealt with the phone calls, the PA system, the filing, the insurances, all sorts of things. Sometimes when it was particularly busy, it'd be all hands on deck for a while, and I'd been trained enough in nursing to be a fill-in should the need arise, but I was far from a regular. Holiday season, though? You know what we call that? Hell. Plain and simple. Something about the holidays makes everyone forget common fucking sense. The amount of stupid injuries from drunken partygoers, or food poisoning from improperly cooked Christmas meals, bad hangovers, or even just people getting frostbite. I don't even think I can count how high that was. And that night was just like that. An Emerge full of idiots and whining and vomiting. The smell from that last one lingered in the air even after being cleaned, so all the staff wore masks, whenever they saw the patients or not. I was 15 hours in, I believe. Not unusual, especially at that time of the year. I had 3 empty extra-large coffees on my desk and more than a few donuts I was slowly working my way through, trying to carb up and sugar up. I still had 5 or so more hours to go. Not that I was scheduled those hours, to be clear. No, I was long over my scheduled hours, but the work was still present, and the people in my Emerge tended not to care whether they were doing stupid drunken things or not. Besides, my entire department was there that night, so it wasn't like there was someone I could call in just so I could go home. The noise from those same people was just starting to get on my nerves. Wired up on caffeine, lack of sleep, and more than a little sugar had left me with very little patience, and most of those people really could have just gone home, lied down, and slept the night off. But no, they had to be here bugging me. So when that noise suddenly died down, there was a moment where I celebrated internally. Had they all just finally left, could I go get some shut-eye for a few hours? I looked up from my desk, and all my happy thoughts died. Everyone was still there, all still in their beds or chairs or standing, but all of them were silent now, all staring at the newly joined figure in the center of the room. The first thing that hit me was how tall he was. Like his head almost hit the sprinklers on the ceiling. The next thing to hit me was how he carried himself as he slowly made his way to me in the desk. He limped ever so slowly. His left leg, it bent the wrong way, like a flamingo or an ostrich leg. His right leg, the foot was clearly broken, the bones poking out of the top of his shoe. He obviously must have been in an insane amount of pain, but despite his slow gait, his face was blank and stony, impassive, almost like he was resting somehow. The look in his eyes was far off, like he was looking right through and past me into some great beyond. I immediately thought he was on drugs, and I rang in on the PA requesting any doctor available to the emergency room immediately. I stood and grabbed the forms, though I wasn't sure he was in any state to fill them out. I pulled one of our wheelchairs, and I remember it squeaked so loud in that silent place. It was like it was the only thing that made any noise. My papers, my clothes, even myself all seemed mute. The only sound to be heard was the screeching of that wheel. I brought it to him and gestured for him to sit. Somehow I've just unsure of how to speak to him, even though mere seconds ago I had paged on the PA with no issues. He looked at me, and for the first time since his mysterious arrival, I saw his eyes focus. They were red, not like bloodshot or anything. It was the irises. They were red, like a deep, almost glowing red. I thought for certain he had to be wearing contacts, though I had no idea where he would have gotten them this far north. Most optometrists there hadn't started carrying them regularly yet, and they didn't qualify as necessary for the regular supplies that were shipped to us, so where he would have gotten colored lenses, I could only guess at. Was he a tourist? They weren't common, most people hate the cold, but they did happen by on occasion. Then he opened his mouth and spoke. I want you to understand that when I say spoke, I mean that in the loosest possible sense. His lips didn't move after they opened, and his jaw never so much as twitched. And his tongue, I could see it when he looked at me, and it was as still as the grave. And yet somehow his voice, or at least what I assumed to be his voice, rang out. You should leave. It's not going to be safe here. It's coming. And then he fell backwards, his eyes rolling back in his head, and all at once sound returned. Some people screamed, others gasped, and others still just sat staring. I rushed to check on him. The giant man had gone pale, and his eyes had closed, and he didn't seem to be breathing. I checked his nose first, felt his breath on the back of my hand, and saw his chest rising and falling, so I knew he was alive, at least. I checked his pulse, and oddly found it to be normal. Pretty much where a man of his prodigious size should be. If anything, it was a bit stronger than I would have expected. Before I could even think of what might be causing that, a doctor appeared and took over, asking me to quiet the room if possible. I took a moment to recover my senses and went about trying to calm and shush the patients. Some of them I just told to shut the hell up, they shouldn't even be here anyways, and weirdly that worked. Most of them did indeed shut up. And then midnight hit. I only know it was midnight because that's when security does their inspection of Emerge, and sure enough, there they were. The moment they entered, the lights went out, and real hell broke loose. Chaos exploded around me as suddenly people were everywhere, were just jumping up and running at each other, screeching and roaring like animals. Their hands were stretched out into claws, and even those with injuries that should have prevented any kind of movement were somehow leaping from spot to spot, attacking anyone within range. The two security jumped into their fray, their batons and guns still holstered and forgotten as they began to rip into patients, the doctors and nurses, and each other. The lights began to flicker, and it only made the scene before me all the worse as I could see the blood spray and chunks of flesh get torn about. But the worst thing, the part that haunts me, and the thing that I know is coming for me one day, that man. The giant whose bones I could still see in his shoes, the one whose heartbeat made no sense with what my eyes told me, he was standing. Standing and smiling, somehow oblivious to the absolute carnage around him. Those that were part of it, they seemed to dance around him, encircling him like an eye of a winter storm, and he just laughed. That sound, there's nothing like it. There's no way to describe it, only to tell you how it affected me. My bones jumped inside me. I know that's impossible for a variety of reasons, but they did. My bones jumped inside me and my ears screamed. I felt the coldest chill coursing through me, one that was unnatural, far worse than even the one time my bully at my school had held the door closed during a storm and I was outside without my coat. I only realized I had been screaming when I ran out of breath and my trembling legs gave out beneath me. I looked up, transfixed by the horrifying sight before me, not wanting to see but unable to look away now. Then the thing that was inside that man, he looked at me. It looked at me. His eyes weren't red now, no, they were the purest of whites, like the first snowfall. Its smile spread until I swore its face split, and it uttered a single syllable at me. Run. It was soft, almost like a whisper, and yet it echoed above everything. All the violence, the guts, and the viscera slopping all over. The inhuman screeches and roars coming from people I once knew and even loved. From strangers from a couple islands over, even from the thing itself. Though its mouth just sat frozen in that mocking charade of a grin. And so I ran. I sprinted faster than I ever thought I could, my feet slipping and sliding in the growing pools of blood, and other things that I didn't even want to think about at that moment. Call me a coward if you will, but I know that anyone else in that same situation would have done the same thing. I reached the double doors leading to the snow and leapt through them like some Olympic gymnast. I didn't even have my coat, my snow boots, nothing, but I did not care. All that mattered was that I get away, that I leave, that I run. As the doors behind me swung shut and I heard that same cackle, the laugh that made my bones dance in my body, that made me shiver all the way to my soul. How long can you run, little meat? It called after me. I didn't look back, I just kept going. Cartero General was pretty close to the rest of the village, so running as I was, it took less than 2 minutes to get there. And the sight before me, everyone, every last person, adults, children, dogs, everyone, all going at each other like rabid animals, like beasts I wept. My last hope was gone, and even though I didn't dare look behind me, I knew that creature masquerading as a man, was following behind. I took a sharp right and kept going to where I knew the delivery boat stayed overnight. I needed to get away, brave the waters, the ice-cold temperature, none of that mattered. I jumped in the first one I found and ripped the rope off, the knots coming undone so easily in my hands. I pushed against the ice, propelling myself in before trying to turn on the engine. It sputtered to life, and for the first moment since all this started, I breathed in relief. As it chugged me away, I didn't even care in what direction. Then the fire started, and the entire horizon behind me lit up like a sickly orange. I'm not even sure how long I stared at them, only that I saw them the entire journey. Those fires occupied my sight, even long into the dawn and even when I was picked up by a passing cargo ship. Their doctor looked me over and prescribed me some treatment I no longer remember. By the time I came back to my senses, I was in Toronto, with no real knowledge of how I got there. I told the police who interviewed me all about it, but they had never heard of Cartrio. Not really surprising, but what was surprising was it wasn't labeled on the maps they showed me when they asked me where it was. It took weeks, but eventually I convinced a delivery captain to take me and one officer to go up to see what was going on. Some kind of jurisdictional nonsense, apparently. That's what they told me, but honestly, I just don't think they believed me. When we arrived at my island, the one I knew from birth, the one I'd grown up on, that I went to school on, that I bought a house on, we found nothing. As in, the island itself was barren. No sign of settlements, no hospital, my house gone, my car, everything. The island itself was still there, the land, the snow, the ice, but there was no sign anyone had ever set foot here, let alone made a village. I would eventually come to find that there was no record of Cartrio anywhere, not in any database or file. The only thing I had as proof that I wasn't crazy was the hospital bracelet I still had on my wrist from when I tripped and hit my head a couple of days before this all went down. They'd been worried about a concussion, so I'd been admitted right away and hadn't bothered to rip it off yet. I'd cut it off when I was in Toronto, but kept it with me. I don't really know why. Anyways, that's my story. That thing, whatever it is, it's after me. I know it is. I don't know where or when, but it'll be there on the day I die. Listeners, this one hit me a bit personally. Felt just a little similar to my own saga, albeit to a much bigger degree and with a much stranger end. I can tell you that something like this, it's not something you can properly describe to people who haven't experienced it. There's no real way to describe the scene she witnessed, the crime scene photos I saw, and this knowledge she has here at the end, this certainty that the thing is still after her. Can't help but wonder when I'll read one of these stories and it has a definitive ending, though that too might be worrisome in and of itself. There are tales of hunters across pretty much every religion and culture in existence, usually aided with some sort of supernatural power or powerful item. To my knowledge, there's no such creature named in any myth that seems to be a giant who magically forces people to attack each other en masse. As you can imagine, I'm sure I spend a lot of time studying myths and legends and even urban legends, but this one seems pretty unique. I'm loath to name the creatures in these tales, but part of me wonders if naming them will somehow make them less terrifying. Either way, thank you for listening, Dark Wanderers and not. If you remain a staunch skeptic, your stubbornness is impressive. If not, welcome. And if you need just a bit more convincing, stick around for the next one. There's no limit to the creatures beyond our knowledge, and no limit to the stories that come from them. Until next time, let's cross that veil together.